View. Plus, The View's OG conservative voice in Hot Topics, Elizabeth Hasselbeck, is back at the table to guest co-host and reveal how she's joining a nationwide movement that can change your child's life. And Katherine Schwarzenegger Pratt talks about married life with superstar Chris Pratt and sharing who taught her about the gift of forgiveness. Hump Day Hot Topics are in the house with Whoopi, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, and Meghan McCain. Now, let's get things started.
Welcome to the View. View.
The echo is real.
Hi, Brian. Hi, Brian. There's no audience.
Yes, I was just about to sort of mention that because it's a historic day on the View.
Sorry, I jumped the gun for you.
Listen, it's that kind of day. We are thrilled to welcome back first our friend and former co-host, Elizabeth Hasselbeck.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. I'll go on and hug everybody.
We're hugging. I can only. You want to hug me more than ever.
I do, but I have self-control.
That's right.
We have to take the proper precautions.
That's right.
Even though you want to hug.
Yours?
I brought you all a little
she brought
something
us all
from
hats.
Tennessee. These are 615 hats.
What's 615 mean?
So 615, the Erie code in Nashville, but as we know, Nashville and surrounding towns suffered a horrific tornado
Yes, they did.
just over a week ago. So I'm here. I'm wearing a bunch of Nashville gear. I'm happy to be a neighbor there and happy to be a friend there. It's been a really hard week.
Yeah.
I spoke with the First Lady Maria Lee's office yesterday, and I have to say the response in terms of volunteers has been awesome. The devastation is real. Tim and I were walking around Donaldson Christian School with Principal Singer there and his team, and to see a schoolroom shattered, alphabet cards on the ground, and the devastation was, it rocked our hearts. But I have to tell you, the soul and spirit of Nashville is so alive. They have never seen more volunteers.
Yeah.
Wow.
They called for 30,000 volunteers, 20,000 volunteers one day, 30,000 showed up.
Wow.
The Red Cross said they've never seen a city respond this way to crisis with their own neighbors and volunteers.
Well, we did. After 9/11, New York responded.
That's right.
that way.
That's right. And so I do, and I think having lived in New York City and lived in Nashville, you get to see that the devastation is real. The damage is, I mean, unbelievable. You guys, if you can walk through there. But God is really keeping his promise through his people. They're showing up, literally volunteers. When Tim and I were walking around, I just heard this over and over again. What do you need? And how can I help? And people just got to work. It was so remarkable. I'm so thankful and proud to live in a place like that where the neighbors show up when hard times come up. And if anybody wants to join us and be a neighbor, you can check out the View's website. There are a few foundations there. You can help. You can help get that school back on track with supplies they need it, and you can help the city just come back the way it should come back. But just know we're in the best hands with our governor. We've got the best set of neighbors, and I'm thankful to be one of them.
I love it. Hey, Candy, we can hear you.
What the hell?
Because we're on television.
Candy.
We're on television, Candy.
Candy's in the audience.
Yeah, we're just trying to figure it out. And so now, there's some things it's going to be like this for the next 45 minutes. So just sit back and enjoy
This
the
is a
show.
Brian's so much closer.
Yeah.
What a week.
He's so much closer now.
Well, now I'm scared because he's right
I know.
there.
I think it's in the 6 foot.
But, you know, it's the
I'm like kind of into it.
Oh, good.
Like
What?
I'm
That he's
kinda,
closer?
Just no audience. Like I'm kind of like reminds
like
me.
this?
I do, but I'm also like a news person.
Well, it feels
I'm
like cable.
Yeah.
Are you
feels very-
introverted?
Very. I
So
mean,
this
like
is good for you.
yeah,
See, I'm like,
I'm
where
kinda into
are my
it.
friends?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's
it's
like
I'm not
cable news, though,
too.
doesn't it?
Let her.
So here's what I was going to say. We're not at home.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
We're actually still
You're
on
on
TV.
television. Yeah.
So the coronavirus situation is still developing. And for the first time ever, as you can see, if you looked around, we made the decision not to have a studio audience. And this is unprecedented. This has never happened on
You didn't do
The
it
View
after
before.
9/11.
They a week later they came back and they had an audience, but they did not. I think once they were off the air, they were off the air, and then they came back the following week and they had an audience. But this has never happened before. So apparently there are 1,000 confirmed cases of the virus in the U.S. Keep in mind how many people actually are in the U.S. 1,000 cases. It's good to know that we know where they are, but it's not hundreds of thousands of cases
Not yet, no.
Well, I'm hoping that it's not going to be.
Well,
I'm hoping that they're going to be able to get a handle on it because people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're washing their hands. They are self-quarantining if they feel maybe they should be.
Yeah.
I think people are starting to recognize all over the country that this is no joke.
Yeah.
This is not a left-wing conspiracy to get you-know-who out of the White House. That's not what this is. This is real. This is people getting sick from something that is in the air. Okay, so the CDC's recommendation of social distancing is why we are audience free today and why we're not the only ones following. Public events are being canceled across the country, schools are being shut down, and people are working from home. So the question, I guess, to the panel is, are y'all doing anything specifically?
Well, I took a bath in Purell this morning.
But you do that every day.
I do that.
Please.
And it was quite refreshing. Yes. Yeah, so I'm
You had
doing
that
my
much
part.
from Al?
Yeah, I'm doing my part.
You are.
My kids' school closed, and so they're home. And my mom is in her 70s, and so she's part of the at-risk group. And so I think we're all.
They say only if you have a compromised.
Yes.
She has asthma.
So there you go.
So we're being very careful, of course, at home, extra careful because she lives with us. But I think everyone should be extra careful because if you yourself are not at risk, I'm sure that there's someone that you either live with or work with or can come into contact with that is at risk.
Yeah.
And so you have to take care of your fellow neighbor.
Yeah, I do, and I think that there can be a fine line between what is precaution, right? What is taking precaution and what is panic. And so I think a lot of it has to be decided. Yes, we're going to take precautions. We're going to Purell. Pray that God's got us in our tomorrows, right? We pray that this coronavirus is extinguished, that it stops in its tracks. And I love the fact that we can identify that this is precautionary, right? We have affected cases. Those are serious. We've had deaths. Those are serious. They're not to be taken lightly at all. But I also think we shouldn't be in a state of panic because what we're doing and taking cues from our president is taking early, strong, bold actions to keep this at bay as much as we possibly can right now. We're still on the front end of this. We're on the very front end of this now. And so I feel comfortable and confident that because of strong leadership and because of the advisement.
Where's the strong leadership?
Yeah, I have to disagree with you on that.
He has told us nothing of any importance.
What do you mean by that?
Trump. He says that it's nothing.
He's actually proposing a middle-class tax halt right now. He's doing a lot of things to help people might have to stay home for work, talking about insurance packages. I think there's some great things happening.
Is that 69% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck.
That's right.
Only 12 states plus D.C., have paid leave, and then you have 1 in 4 Americans that don't have paid leave, and especially low-wage workers.
Totally,
so you have
great
people
point.
that are going to work when they don't feel well because it makes the difference for their family. So I think when you look at the response, Elizabeth, from this administration, it really hasn't been good. I don't think that we've seen real leadership.
He's not going to get reelected because
we don't even have real testing.
But we have real leadership.
But the governor of Illinois was on television just this morning, and he said that he's been on the phone with the federal government, and they don't have enough testing capabilities. And they've had a lot of deaths, not a lot of deaths, but they've had 19 cases detected in Illinois.
He himself didn't he shake hands with Doug Collins the other day, who also was in contact with somebody who had the coronavirus, and he has not gotten tested.
Have you gotten tested?
No, there's no test kits. There are no test kits.
Well, here's the deal. If the president's medical advisor, his chief physician, says that he has no...
I only believe Fauci.
Well, believe both. I think we should prepare. I think we should pray. I'm not going to let coronavirus rule me and let it be an idol. I'm going to use Purell
I'm not listening to Dr. Bone Spurs either. I'm not.
Here's the deal. We are in a position right now, economically and from a national security standpoint, to be able to withstand and take care of our people right now. And these early actions by the president on travel restrictions, et cetera, I do believe long-term will help our country. I'm trying to create a system in even our home. We've got kids who are super worried about this or having anxiety about this. I think we need to look out for helpers. We've got chief medical officers who are telling us to take precautions. We're doing that. We've got an economy right now that has had a buffer and is going strong that can handle
Really?
this. Yes.
The stock market's in the toilet.
Right now, but we have had a buffer over time that can absorb this. And I do think our leadership right now is pointing us to say, hey, this is not a panic situation. This is a precautionary situation. We're going to use Purell, wash our hands, and we're going to be okay, guys.
How can it not be a panic situation when you have people dying from this? You have.
Can I talk?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, I think both things can be true. I think we can have a robust economy, and you're 100% right. We are the country, I would say, is the most capable of handling this than any other country. I think part of the problem is Trump keeps telling Americans, stay calm, it will just go away, it's really working out. And we're seeing the death rate and cases go up, and people are saying because the testing kits aren't here in the way that they should be, there's probably more cases than we realize. And I think it's different for someone like my friends living in Arizona, like they're just not at the same panic level that like New Yorkers are.
Sure.
So I do think this could be something that like the coastal elites are feeling in a different way than people in the middle of the country, which is more than fine. But I will say the political implications of this could be staggering. Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden have both canceled all their rallies for the foreseeable future. And the idea of having a presidential race where you can't have the president and I assume he'll cancel his rallies as well, doing any kind of rope lines whatsoever, make no mistake the kind of impact one-on-one interactions can have with people. And I do think that if people start getting really scared and people start panicking because they're not secure about what's happening, then I do think things could get a whole lot worse.
Here's what I know. I think that fear and isolation are tools of the enemy. And I think right now in this time of physical isolation, or if you have to desocialize, find a way to love somebody and hug them in a way that you can, because we need our hearts and our heads to be cared for as well. And I do think we're in a state where we can love each other well during this also.
I'm going to love you very well right now and tell you we have to leave. We have to leave, but we're
right
coming back.
Where are we going?
We're coming back.
Where are we going?
Thanks so much.
Later, Biden's big win. Will Bernie throw in the towel after Joe Biden racks up game-changing primary wins? And is yesterday's campaign trail confrontation a red flag for Joe in a general election?
I did not say that. I did not say that.
Lawyers were asking for 5 years because his life has already been so ruined.
Oh, is that so?
And,
Wow.
he's an older man and he shouldn't. Well, if you keep your business where it's supposed to be, people are not going to come for you.
Yeah,
Just don't rape
don't
sexually
rape
assault
folks.
people.
Can you break down the 23 years? Like, how does that happen? Like,
Well, he was convicted of 2 counts. One had an exposure of up to 25 years, and the other one had an exposure up to 4 years. And so, really, he had an exposure up to 29 years, which tells me this judge gave him almost the maximum.
Almost.
And the prosecution in this case, in a letter to the judge, outlined 36 prior bad acts. So not the cases that he was convicted of, but all the other things that he was accused of, and that you had people like Annabella Sciorra testify to.
Yeah.
And that can be considered.
She alleged that he raped her, I believe.
Yes, and so I think that this judge considered all of that and gave him what really is almost a life sentence for someone like Harvey, because he's 67.
Yes.
Bye-bye, Harvey.
And he also has 4 more counts that he has to face in Los Angeles.
He's got to go to L.A. now.
Wow.
I think, you're probably not going to get out.
No, I don't think so. You know what he said in court today? He said that men facing allegations in the Me Too movement are being accused of, quote, things that none of us understand, end quote, saying he was confused by the rape case about to put him in prison. Thousands of men are losing due process. I'm worried about this country.
Just had due process.
You just literally had due process.
Yeah,
this is.
So he still doesn't get it.
Because in his mind it was consensual.
Yeah.
Because he has a psychosis.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with
Isn't
his
that
head.
incredible? He still doesn't get it.
No.
All these men think it's consensual.
It's
and every one of them
horrible
says
thing.
that she was into it.
You're not letting him off the hook because it's something in his head, you're saying?
No.
Okay.
No.
I just want to...
No.
He's saying he still doesn't get it.
There's something wrong
Did any
with
of you
people
ever
like
meet
that.
him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did twice, and I keep thinking about it in my head because he was like such a it was in public and like whatever, but he was like such a physically intimidating man.
Huge,
large and tall. And I remember, even at the time, one time I was on a date, and the guy I was on a date with knew him. No, I was on a date with another man, and the man knew him, and he came over, and I remember him being like, "Oh, I know Meghan McCain," and like nothing had ever happened, but even at the time, I remember being like, Like,
Creep.
it's kind of like a
What a
weird,
creep.
it wasn't like, oh, hi, it's a pleasure to meet you. So I can't imagine if you're like an actress or someone coming up. He clearly like felt, and this is like I don't compare my experience at all. It's just weird to think about. It stuck out in my head because there's some men that you meet that just clearly feel like space is a different kind of boundary.
You know, we were talking about Chris Matthews last week.
Oh, wait, last final thing. Ronan Farrow win all the awards, get everything, because this is his doing, and he's really looking out for women in the country. We have to give it, because NBC tried to kill the story from him.
So that's a good reminder. Really good.
Sorry.
You were about to say.
Well, we were talking about Chris Matthews last week, you know, who basically didn't, I don't believe, and you can correct me, I don't think he touched anybody, didn't intimidate anybody, but he did say to a girl, you know, you look gorgeous or something, and I could really fall in love with you.
They felt that he sexually harassed them.
But to me, people are complaining all weekend to me that my stance on him was too strict, that he was shouldn't have been fired. Even Bill Maher was saying it's ridiculous, it's cancel culture, etc. But I was thinking, well, why is it that a girl would not like that, or a woman, a young woman, would not like somebody saying, I could fall in love with you? Well, it's flirting. That's what it is. It's flirting. And sometimes you don't want to be flirted with by some old guy that you don't know.
But it can also feel like harassment.
Flirting and rape.
It feels a little bit, well, it's not on the Weinstein scale at all.
No.
But Chris Matthews just lost his job. He's not going to jail, thank goodness.
Bill Maher's point, because I saw that clip too, is that there's a scale. That there is a difference between inappropriately flirting, which was totally wrong, and I agree it was completely inappropriate, and then a serial rapist that had raped
But do you
over
think
80.
that Chris Matthews should have left?
No, I don't think so either. I took heat.
Well,
I think we need to be proactive and educate young women that are coming up in industries, and be open and be a sister's keeper and come up with phrases for young girls who are going to learn to work in these industries.
I'm not sure that
Hold up.
You know,
hold up. We can come back to this because it's really a good conversation, one that needs to be happening. But we'll be right back.
Okay.
This is Ava.
It's out of control. So you want to put a button on the conversation, which is we have to speak to young women about how they see themselves and to treat themselves the way they want to be treated, and to look out for each other, not just leaving somebody. You know, if you go out as a group, everybody should stay together.
I think that part is important. I also think it's important to to teach men about what is appropriate behavior and what is inappropriate behavior, especially, you know, I'm the mother of a boy, of a son. What do you say to a woman? What is inappropriate to say? What is consent? That entire thing, because when you have a Harvey Weinstein saying, I'm here and I don't even understand why, that speaks to culture. And I also think that, you know, there should also be but there should also be something that we can teach our girls in terms of how to respond immediately. Because if somebody is making you feel uncomfortable, you have to have a voice in that moment, which is very difficult.
Have vocabulary, just like we teach them their multiplication tables.
I'm uncomfortable. Don't say that.
Flashcards of expression.
Don't do that.
Absolutely.
But I also think like the conversation about cancel culture started to shift with Aziz Ansari, because he had this op-ed written about him, which was, in my opinion, Aziz Ansari. And the woman basically like sort of accused him of like being sexually inappropriate, and it was interpreted in a lot of different ways. And I think for a lot of people reading it, including me, felt like a date gone bad. And I felt like he was railroaded for no reason. And at the time, I think a lot of people, because we were like right in the midst of like culture change, people didn't know what to say or how to do it. And there's this backlash to cancel culture because I do think people think it has overstepped too far. Obviously not with Harvey Weinstein. He's so far the most public worst case scenario.
He's the one that you should start with.
But I think we should have conversations with women and men also about you know, what your comfort level is. Like what your, if you're not comfortable, you have to say something as well. And I understand there are power dynamics that play in different ways.
Sometimes they talk about,
there have been men, in my opinion, that have been railroaded. Not all of them, but there have been a few.
A lot of times they talk about, you know, you shouldn't go into the apartment with the guy, or you shouldn't let him into your house, you know, or, you know, I mean, and then they blame the girl. You shouldn't have.
That feels like blame the victim.
It can feel like that.
But here's the thing I was thinking. It's like, in my lifetime, a lot of men have come to my house to fix the plumbing, to do the carpentry, to clean the house, to fix the gutters, whatever's going on. And I've never been assaulted in my home. So one time, if a guy came in and assaulted me, that's on him. That's not on me. The numbers are on my side.
Well, and also raising, I think, young men, to your point,
even if you're on a date with a guy, I'm sure you run, all of us, on a lot of dates. Mostly it doesn't happen. When it does happen, it's on him.
I think go back to some principles with young men, too. And listen, they don't have, I don't think they're board with the spirit to, you know, harass and attack women, but we have to continue to nurture their hearts to be protectors of girls and women, to be nurturers of them back, and to be their guardians here. Not
Well,
not because
I've
got 2 boys and a girl.
And you have to
How old are they now?
Tim and I should say we have.
How old are your children now?
14, 12, and 10.
Grace is 14.
But I tell our boys now, and as does Tim, listen, it is your responsibility to be we're going to help you raise up so that you can protect women. You know, you can be there,
and
not
honor
because
them and
respect them, cherish them, love them. And so I think
what does that look like?
And listen, there will be, Ellen, we look at Harvey here, like that's not every man, right? So we're not condemning every man. There are some really great men, millions and millions of great men
I have
doing
a dad
this
who's a
very
great man. I
thing.
married a great man.
Yes, so when we talk about a case like this, I think, Megan, to your point, like, we can also celebrate the men that are doing this every single day, and so we applaud them as well.
And so I'm going to take it all the way back to, we need to educate these young women, as many of us were educated. You don't put yourself in a position, if you can possibly help it, of going to someone's, if somebody says you have to come to my house, you have to say no. We have to do it a different way. There are conversations to be had, and it's not because we can't do it. People have stopped teaching this to women. People don't have these conversations with young women, and men have to do a lot of stuff. But we've got to honor our own women. We've got to teach them as well. And we'll come right back.
After serving a combined 18 years of active duty, including 5 deployments in both Iraq and Afghanistan, 2 of our nation's veterans came back and asked themselves this question: what does our country need, and how can we help? Their answer was creating the Positivity Project. And here's just one example of how it is transforming the lives of kids in America. Check this out.
We love the Positivity Project because it focused on relationships and the fact that other people matter.
We stop and we think and we look at other perspectives and consider, you know, what does it mean to have character and to act with character, and what makes up our character.
It teaches kids about all the different things and strengths and emotions inside them that they never knew were there.
The Positivity Project I see is mainly about seeing people's traits and what basically is in a person besides just what they look like.
Kindness means when you're helping somebody that lost one of their family members.
My favorite one, humor.
Why humor?
Because I'm the best at it. I make everybody at my house crack up.
I think leadership is trusting in others.
I really like this. Can we read this again? I do the right thing when no one is looking.
Awesome. This is the 2nd year that we've been doing the Positivity Project. I do it consistently every day. So it's part of the routine.
My whole life has changed just because of this Positivity Project. My whole mindset has changed. Other people matter. Put them before yourself. And you can just see how much our school is changing because of this.
It's brought us more together with the Positivity Project. People learning their strengths, being able to not fight over if they have a conflict, and just being able to talk it out.
They said leadership. Well, what did they say about leadership and how it connected to other strengths?
I've really grown, and if you saw me in 6th grade, you'd be like, no, that's not the same person.
The Positivity Project allows us to embrace the differences that surround the school, because it doesn't shun people who are different, it welcomes them.
It's hard to communicate with people. It's hard to communicate your emotions and feelings. If we can help kids do that now, they're going to rise to the top, and there's nothing that they can't do. You have some good character, you're going to make it in life.
Wow. Well, listen, if there's ever a time for a program like this, it is right now. Please welcome the co-creators of the Positivity Project, Mike Irwin and Jeff Bryan, and the principals, Dr. Virginia Hill and Karen Lind, and some of their amazing students from PS 57 in Staten Island. We're so glad you're here. Listen, we need a lot of positivity right now. I think we're in a state of panic with a lot of things going on in the world. Mike, I want to ask you this. You served in the Army on active duty for 13 years, deployed 3 times to Iraq and Afghanistan. currently a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserves. You come back and you say, I want to serve more with Jeff. Why did you feel there was a need for the Positivity Project, and what difference is it really making?
Absolutely. So in the military, we talk a lot about camaraderie and about character. And so we exist because we want to help kids throughout our country to be able to see these character strengths, things like enthusiasm and integrity and bravery and humility in themselves, but also in other people. That gives them the language and the understanding to build stronger relationships in their life. Why is that so important? Because we need relationships in life to be happy, but we also need them in times of adversity, as we're seeing right now. You've seen it in Nashville, see it with coronavirus. Like, it's absolutely critical to that. And so we also know that, like, as an organization, if we can help our family members to be able to have these conversations at home, like the one I had with my son a few weeks ago when he was in the hospital, to be brave when you're scared, to have self-control, to be grateful for the nurses. Those are game-changing conversations.
That's right, and those are difference makers for sure. We want to talk about how many schools currently have the program right now.
Yeah, so right now we're partnered with over 560 schools in 23 states, so all the way from California to Maine. So that means on a daily basis, over 300,000 students are learning about character strengths like bravery, forgiveness, and integrity, and the importance of relationships in our lives. You can see some incredible educators right next to us and the students. I mean, we're just really grateful to work alongside these servant leaders who every day are doing incredible work.
It is amazing. I'm sitting next to Megan, and I think that to be able to look across at our nation's greatest, our veterans who come back and want to serve, just has to move your heart. I know
I was just going to say thank you for your service.
Yeah.
It's inspiring, and you're obviously passing it on.
Yeah. Well, and I'll just say on that briefly is, we talk about service a lot from the military standpoint, but, educators, they are on the front lines of the American dream, and they are 100%. Servant leaders, and it's awesome to work with them.
Virginia, you had a recent injury. Hope you're feeling better. Until then, you were the principal at Lincoln Elementary School in Pittsburgh. How did you hear about the project? Why did you decide to put it in your school? What's your message to other leaders in schools who might be curious about this program today?
There's a ton of initiatives that happen in schools. We were implementing a new curriculum. We were getting ready to ask kids to do a lot more than what we were demanding of them at the current moment. Our leadership staff knew that we needed a character program that would help support students doing that difficult work. Dr. Stan Thompson reached out to me. He's in a grant community in Pittsburgh, and he wanted to support us in any way that he could. And what he did do was connect Mike and I, and Positivity Project came up. Why it's important for educators is because it doesn't take up a lot of instructional time, it doesn't cost a lot of money, and we were able to implement it with ease, and it was powerful.
That's an educator's main concern. How much time in the classroom is going to be allotted for this, and how much is it going to cost us to implement this? And those two things are significantly reduced, 15 minutes a day. Karen, I want to ask you, you're the principal of PS 57 in Staten Island. What impact has it had on your students and your teachers and their families?
So it is a tremendous impact because, as Mike and Jeff said earlier, it's all about building positive relationships. And so in order to build a positive relationship with your students, with yourself, with your family, you have to use these character traits. You have to show kindness. You have to show humility. You have to show generosity. You have to show love. And so these traits are instilled in all of us, and it just gives the language to the students, and then they identify it in themselves. They identify it in their classmates. The faculty embrace it because...
And they take it home.
Yes, and as Dr. Hill said before, it's just something that we do all the time.
I'm going to ask the kids to be brave right now. Raise your hand if you want every school in the United States of America to have this program. I'm with you. That's brave. Our thanks to Mike Irwin, Jeff Bryan, Dr. Virginia Hill, Karen Lynn, and the students at PS 57. For more information on the Positivity Project, check out our website. You're going to love it. We'll be right back.